Today, we'll be doing a Chandrakanta story about how Kroor Singh gets into big trouble for telling the truth. Also featuring Tej Singh's clever Aiyyaari and how Princess Chandrakanta and Prince Virendra meet in secret at midnight. Welcome to Stories from India. This is a podcast that will take you on a journey through the rich mythology, folklore, and history of the Indian subcontinent. I am Narad Muni, the celestial storyteller and the original Time Lord. With my ability to travel through space and time, I can bring you fascinating stories from the past, the present, and the future. From the epic tales of the Mahabharata and Ramayana to the folk tales of the Panchatantra, to stories of Akbar Birbal and Tenali Raman, I have a story for every occasion. The purpose of the stories is neither to pass judgment nor to indoctrinate. My goal is only to share these stories with people who may not have heard them before, and to make them more entertaining for those who have. Chandrakanta is a historical science fiction/fantasy novel. It was written and published by Devaki Nandan Khatri over a century ago, in 1888. If you haven't heard the story so far, that's okay, because I'll give you a quick summary. Prince Virendra of Naugarh loved Princess Chandrakanta of the neighboring Vijaygarh, and she loved him back. But Chandrakanta's father was opposed to their union, all because Kroor Singh had poisoned his mind. Kroor Singh was the minister's son, and also his assassin. And by that, I don't mean that he was employed as an assassin by his father. I mean that he assassinated his father. Besides poisoning the king's mind, he also poisoned his father's body. The almost casual way in which Kroor Singh committed patricide should tell you that he was one of the main villains here. Any villain in literature is usually motivated by money, power, or love. In Kroor Singh's case, it was all three. He wanted to marry Chandrakanta, he wanted to become king, and he wanted the keys to Vijaygarh's treasury. But unless he took some drastic steps, the best he could hope for was to become minister, and that too only after his father had passed away. That is what might have prompted him to poison his father. Most of the main characters in this story are aided by some very special sidekicks. These were Aiyyaars. You could even argue that the Aiyyaars were the real heroes, because they did all the real work. Rival Aiyyaars were locked in a cat and mouse game, trying to outwit each other. Aiyyaars were something like a blend of Mystique from the X-Men, James Bond, and Sherlock Holmes. Because they could shapeshift, they had access to futuristic technology, and they were experts at chemistry. Virendra Singh's Iyer, Tej Singh, single-handedly outwitted and arrested Ahmed, one of Kroor Singh's Iyers. Tej Singh imprisoned Ahmed in a beautiful valley that had no entrance except through a locked secret cave. Only Tej Singh and his brother-in-law and fellow Iyer Devi Singh knew about this place. Kroor Singh's other Iyer was, at one point, himself imprisoned by Chandrakanta's Aiyyaars, Champa and Chapla. But he managed to escape. Despite the twists and turns we've seen so far, not a lot has changed. Virendra Singh and Chandrakanta were still banned from meeting each other. They were still pining away for each other. Tej Singh was still secretly delivering messages back and forth between the pair. Kroor Singh was still thinking up nefarious plots. Nazim, who was Kroor Singh's other Aiyar, was still on surveillance in Chandrakanta's garden, in case either Tej Singh or Virendra Singh tried to make contact with the princess. Everyone was back to their starting positions, except Ahmed. He was locked up in the cave. And Kroor Singh's father. He was no more. So we begin the story back with Tej Singh and Virendra Singh. They were making their way towards Chandrakanta's garden in the dark of the night. "Are we there yet?" asked Virendra Singh. Tej Singh shushed the prince hurriedly. "Almost. We just have to swing over the snake pit of terror, and then scale the mountain of madness, and then swim across the river of death." Virendra wanted to groan, but he held himself. No way was he going to admit to Tej Singh that he had made a mistake by insisting on coming along. That was a good thing, because Tej Singh said, "Relax, I'm just kidding. We are here. Just go on here, through this hole." It was a hole in the hedge. It looked like it had been there a long time. And what's more, Jai Singh's people were aware of it. It was surrounded by traffic cones and a "Caution, Men at Work" sign. "In you go, Virendra, right through the hole."
"But it's got a construction sign. It says, 'Do not enter.'"
the prince protested. "I might be going out on a limb here," Tej Singh said, "but a Vijaygarh magistrate is unlikely to care that you ignored a construction zone sign when they are signing your execution order." Virendra went in reluctantly, and then was suddenly glad that he did, because once he had crossed the hole, he was in a similar construction zone on the other side of the hedge. The sign there said not to enter, but it didn't say anything about exiting. So, Virendra coolly strode out and bumped straight into someone. Luckily for him, it wasn't one of Chandrakanta's guards. It was Chandrakanta herself. The prince and the princess squealed in delight and hugged each other. Tej Singh went away and made some small talk with Champa and Chapla about some article in the latest Aiyyaar's Digest magazine. In that moment, everyone in Chandrakanta's garden was happy. And that included Nazim. Because yes, Nazim was in the garden too. Remember, he was keeping watch for just such a scenario. He had hoped to catch Tej Singh, but to land the big fish, Virendra Singh in the bargain, was an absolute cracker. So, Nazim didn't mind that it was the middle of the night, and that Kroor Singh was still in the middle of mourning when he ought not to be disturbed. Nazim rang the bell over and over, until finally he heard Kroor Singh's voice.
"What in the blazes do you mean by waking me up? Go away, unless you want me to slice you up with my sword."
Kroor Singh, open up, it's me," Nazim, the Aiyar said.
Nazim, eh? Well, that changes everything. Hold on, while I fetch my whip, so I can flog you while I slice you up.
But, Kroor Singh, I have the best news for you. We've got them. We've got them both. That changed Kroor Singh's immediate plans. He set aside the sword and the whip for a later date. And he let his Aiyar in. Nazim hastily explained what he had seen in the garden and concluded his tale by adding that now they were going to catch Virendra Singh red-handed.
Why red-handed? Wondered Kroor Singh. Were they eating paneer tikka masala or something?
No, Nazim said, though that could be arranged for Kroor Singh if he was in the mood. The Aiyar suggested that they could place a Swiggy order for him, but they must get a move on after dinner. Virendra won't hang around forever, he said. Kroor Singh hesitated. Technically, the king expected Kroor Singh to stay indoors for 13 days, given his father had just passed away. But it was a very temporary hesitation. He put on his shoes and rushed to the palace to wake up the king. The king's attitude at being woken up was not that much different from Kroor Singh's.
What is it?
He asked his servant petulantly. You have a visitor, Your Highness. Kroor Singh says he has bad news.
Kroor Singh is bad news,
Tej Singh mumbled.
All right, send him in. But fetch my whip and my sword, just in case this is all for nothing.
Kroor Singh came in and said that the king should immediately have his troops surround Chandrakanta's garden, because inside it was Virendra Singh himself. He had snuck in from somewhere. Tej Singh found that hard to believe. None of his guards had reported any disturbance. But Kroor Singh seemed so confident that the king decided to investigate after all. If Kroor Singh was right, the king could be rid of Virendra Singh forever. It's not that Tej Singh couldn't stand Virendra. In fact, long ago, Tej Singh had made a deal with Virendra's father, that Virendra and Chandrakanta would marry when they grew up. He wasn't sure exactly why he wanted to get rid of Virendra. He couldn't quite put his finger on it. But it didn't matter. Virendra Singh was the kingdom's most wanted criminal. He couldn't very well just sneak in and stroll in the palace gardens. What sort of a message would that send to the other most wanted criminals? So the king put on his clothes and went to the garden. And before doing so, he gave the orders to have the palace gardens surrounded. Tej Singh also ordered Kroor Singh to stay back. Meanwhile, back in the garden, Chandrakanta and Virendra, as well as Tej Singh and Chapla and Champa, were all busy engaged in conversation. That's when a beggar popped in. He seemed to appear out of nowhere. He had a ragged beard, and he was dressed in rags. He was dirty all over, as if he hadn't bathed in days. "Fly, you fools," were his opening words. "The king is coming. The garden is surrounded." Saying that, he winked out of existence. Virendra hadn't paid attention to what the beggar was saying. His focus was on Chandrakanta. But luckily for him, Tej Singh had paid attention. The Aiyar quickly dragged the prince away into the direction of the hole in the hedge. And not a moment too soon, for just then the king entered. Chandrakanta pretended to be surprised. Father, you're here at this time of night? Is everything all right?
Everything's fine,
Said Tej Singh, while still glancing quickly in every direction possible.
I just wanted to see my favorite daughter,
He added. I'm your only daughter.
All the more reason then,
The king said. A guard ran up to the king and said, We have checked the entire garden and the perimeter, Your Majesty. There's no one here. The king was disappointed.
You're sure you checked everywhere?
The guard replied that he was absolutely sure. Not exactly 100%, because they hadn't checked the part where the hole in the hedge was being rebuilt.
Is it possible that Virendra might have snuck in through that hole and snuck out?
Tej Singh wondered. He pondered and then concluded,
No, Kroor Singh must have been wrong.
At this point, you're probably thinking that everyone who's not an Aiyar is pretty incompetent. Not so. It was more that Aiyars were very clever at staging appearances, not just of their own bodies to make them look like someone else. Tej Singh was able to move extremely fast, and he could easily erase any signs of his having been there. Footprints, fingerprints, that sort of stuff. Tej Singh was terribly upset by the time he got back to his palace. By now, his opinion that Kroor Singh was wrong had changed into that Kroor Singh was wrong and incompetent. And because of that, the king had lost sleep, he had lost face, and he had lost patience. Kroor Singh beamed and asked,
So, did you catch the blighter?
Tej Singh couldn't take it anymore.
Guards, arrest that man,
He said, pointing to Kroor Singh.
Kroor Singh, do you know what your punishment is going to be for lying to the king?
Kroor Singh didn't want to answer that. He hadn't lied. But not answering a direct question would compound any crime that the king imagined him to have committed. So he tried to answer truthfully. I won't get an invite to the next party at the palace?
You don't get an invite to the next party, and you're going to get whipped,
The king answered. Oh, so I was half right, Kroor Singh said. Before the lashes could be administered, Kroor Singh protested. But, Your Majesty, I've known you for many years.
Maybe that's why I can't stand the sight of you anymore,
Tej Singh retorted. Kroor Singh said that he hadn't seen Virendra himself. He had only acted based on information he had received from Nazim. So, the king ordered Nazim to be summoned as well. Ultimately, Kroor Singh got 50 lashes and Nazim got 200, and neither was pleased with what they got. The king threw something else into the bargain, a declaration that Kroor Singh would not, under any circumstances, become his minister. If he had put the king in this situation before he even became minister, Imagine how much worse it might be after he got the job. He might have visions of spotting the most wanted criminal at the most inconvenient times. During trade negotiations with neighboring kingdoms, during the annual King's Club Gala, or in the middle of a Gilli Danda tournament. Dashed embarrassing minister he would turn out to be. Back in Kroor Singh's home, Nazim cursed his master. You stopped to think about paneer tikka masala, and that's why Virendra and Tej Singh had time to escape. And I got lashed for it.
Don't forget, Nazim, that I got lashed too. And unlike you, I've got to look for a new job now.
Nazim didn't say that he too was going to look for a new job. Back in those days as well, it was not a good practice to admit to your manager that you were going to quit until after you had a job offer from somewhere else. Kroor Singh summarized their situation.
Tej Singh has upped his game. And we have lost Ahmed.
And we have lost Jai Singh's ear. Nazim objected to that last one. No, you're definitely wrong. He had both of his ears on. I was being whipped, but I did see his face quite clearly.
It's an expression, Kroor Singh said. It means he won't be listening to us.
Despite how close he came to rage quitting, Nazim sighed and said that there was a way. Kroor Singh needed to form an alliance with Maharaj Shivdat of Chunargarh. Kroor Singh was curious, of course. Nazim explained that it was a secret and not to tell anyone, but he knew from his Aiyyaar phone book that Shivdat had 6 registered Aiyyaars, and not just run-of-the-mill Aiyyaars. These were heavyweights, the experts in the field. There was Badrinath and Jagannath, who had written books on Aiyyaari, and the others were top of their graduating class as well. All Kroor Singh needed was to convince Shivdat to support him, and that would require all the money and all the jewels he had. So the two of them decided to go away, just for a day or so, establish a memorandum of understanding, and then 2 or 3 trips later, they'd have Shivdat's support. Kroor Singh collected all the money and the jewels that he could. He packed them up and left immediately with Nazim towards Chunargarh. Before going, he gave strict instructions to his servants not to reveal anything to the king or to the king's servants. So, when Ahmed showed up later that morning, Kroor Singh's servants weren't sure what to tell him. Kroor Singh hadn't accounted for this possibility. Kroor Singh's servants had a hasty conference and concluded that this was Ahmed, whom they all knew and had worked with. They knew he was missing for a bit, but he explained very well, didn't he? That he had been sent on a secret mission by Kroor Singh, and the story that he had been captured was just a trick to throw people off his scent. The servants thought further that the mission must have been very peculiar, because Ahmed had come back with his voice changed, and he was about 6 inches taller now, and seemed to have switched from being left-handed to right-handed. But what did they know? They just imagined Aiyyaars to be every bit as glamorous as the medieval equivalent of Bollywood made them out to be. So they readily told Ahmed, who was really Tej Singh in disguise, where Kroor Singh had gone and why. the fake Ahmed announced that he was going to go join his master in Chunargarh, and he had a long journey ahead, so he couldn't stay. Tej Singh quickly changed from his Ahmed disguise into another disguise, that of one of Kroor Singh's servants. He went to Jai Singh's court and in between sobs introduced himself as Kroor Singh's servant Ramlal. The king asked Ramlal why he was there. Ramlal answered that he was here to complain about Kroor Singh's treachery. Kroor Singh had turned traitor. He had fled the kingdom and taken all his money and jewels with him. And when Ramlal had tried to stop him in the name of the king, Kroor Singh had beaten him up. And what was worst, Kroor Singh owed him back wages for the last several months. The king was concerned. Kroor Singh's behavior seemed to be getting more and more erratic. He asked his servants where Kroor Singh was, and he was told that he was in mourning. "If you don't believe me, let's go to his house right now," Ramlal said. And so they did. The king directly addressed the two guards at the door and asked them where Kroor Singh was. The first guard answered,
"He's very ill, Your Majesty."
"The lashes from your whip last night left him in a terrible state, and he is continuing to mourn his father." The king was just about to turn to Ramlal with an "I told you so" expression. But just then, the second guard added, "Yes, Your Majesty, Kroor Singh is ill. He definitely hasn't fled to Chunargarh, and he definitely hasn't taken all the money and jewels with him, and he certainly didn't instruct us to lie to you." You can imagine the king's reaction to that unnecessary denial. He ordered the guards to open the door. Inside the house, there was no Kroor Singh to be found, and no money, and no jewels. The king was furious with Kroor Singh's treachery. He immediately ordered the guards to be punished, and Kroor Singh's house to be auctioned off, and Ramlal was to be given some money from the king's treasury. So that's where we'll end it this time, with Tej Singh disguised as Ramlal carrying all the money that he could, and Kroor Singh in Chunargarh oblivious of his new homeless status. A few notes. According to Devakinandan Khatri, Aiyyaars did not really know magic, unlike how they were portrayed in the television series. Aiyyaars were just experts at futuristic technology, chemistry, and stealth. A huge appeal of the book is in how Khatri keeps readers guessing about who's using Aiyyaari and what their real intentions are. Like a mystery where you keep changing your guess about whether it was the butler, or the cook, or the driver, or the mailman who did it. The previous Chandrakanta episodes were episode 130, 137, 174, and 198. They're linked on the site sfipodcast.com. Check them out. In the next episode, we are in the Mahabharata again. It's a story about a princess who's also a snake. And she marries a perfectly human prince, Arjun, one of the Pandav brothers. We'll see that she is quite remarkable because she has the ability to light fires underwater and to bring someone back to life. Thank you all for the comments on social media and on Spotify's Q&A. I can't directly reply to the questions there, but I'll address them here on this show. Mushroom, I wish you a happy birthday. I'd actually covered the story of the blue jackal, back in episode 141 if you want to just hear that. I'm happy to cover any other stories that you might have in mind. Just let me know. Anshu and Ankush, I was thrilled to read your comments. In a foreign environment, I'm glad this podcast is helping you stay connected to your roots. It's feedback like this that keeps me motivated. We will be doing a Mahabharat story next week, and I'll do the Talking Cave one pretty soon. And I'll be doing more Vikram and Betal stories as well. Thank you for the kind comments, Darsh, Hiranmai, and Parasasapi. Naomi, I'd love to do a story about Krishna or Radha, or maybe both. Watch out for this in an upcoming episode. Elena, I'm happy to do another Panchatantra story soon. I just have a few more requests to get through, so I appreciate your patience. If you have any other comments or suggestions, or if there are particular stories that you'd like to hear, please do let me know by leaving a comment or a review on the site sfipodcast.com, or tweet at sfipodcast, or reply to the questions on Spotify's Q&A. You can also find me on Instagram and Facebook. Be sure to subscribe to the show to get notified automatically of new episodes. A big thank you to each and every one of you for your continued support and your feedback. The music is from purpleplanet.com. That's purple-planet.com. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time.